All right, we're recording. Oh, and I'm gonna give co-host to Diego and to Mal so that both of y'all are able to screen share and do all this stuff.
Thank you.
So when we're ready.
Yes, yeah. Just go ahead and start whenever you're ready. I can text some of the people that RSVP'd just to remind them to hop in. But in either case, I think we can go ahead with Show on the Road because we do have a few folks that want to watch this later as well.
All right, sounds good. All right, I'm gonna get started then. All right, hi everyone. My name is Diego Montoya. I am a Miami DSA member and a member of YDSA at FIU. And today for the Skills Saturdays training on July 26th, we are having a social media and graphics training. We'll be going over the importance of social media and how it relates to our vision in creating a better world as DSA members, and also just how to run a good social media page. And also in the later half, we'll be going over how to create good graphics, uh, things like color theory and graphic design, and just making sure that your page looks really well. Originally, this presentation was created for YDSA workshop back in late February, but we've kind of tweaked it a little bit to be more relevant to a DSA chapter since this is a Miami DSA training. But yeah, overall, this will be a full presentation. There'll be questions towards the end of each section. I'll be facilitating and hosting the first portion of the section where we'll go over the kind of broader social media training, and then Mal will take the reins at the second half of the training to go over the graphic design portion. So thank you everyone for joining so far. So with the goals of a social media page is this workshop is going to enable you to develop a strategy for stylistic and engaging social media, having effective social media management, and turning social media overconsumption into working class power. In this day and age where a lot of people have phones, computers, laptops, and will have access to social media, whether it be Instagram or Twitter, YouTube or Facebook. It's important to be able to reach these people in a way that's easy, and social media is the way to do it. Yeah. So the first portion will be going over developing tone and messaging, asking yourself, what are we saying? Who are we saying it to? How are we saying it? Why we're saying it? As members of a YDSA or DSA chapter, we are part of something bigger, and our chapter's social media is able to represent the entirety of DSA and YDSA at large. Um, so, you know, when we post something, we're not only representing ourselves, but we're representing the whole org. And it could be in a certain region, or someone like in Miami DSA, or just in Miami or South Florida. If they look at the Miami DSA Instagram page or the YDSA FIU page, they're looking at it's a peek at like the broader YDSA or DSA organization as a whole. Second point is to keep it simple. Posts should be made in clear, concise, everyday language. Avoid jargon and define terms when necessary. So obviously, something like a social media page is supposed to reach a broad audience, and we don't want to overcomplicate things with a lot of unnecessary lingo that they might not understand. It's you know developing a point and posting it so that people can clearly understand it without any fuss. And then post deliberately. What is the intent of the post? Is it a call to action, an announcement, a recap of a chapter win? Reflect the goal of the post through your word choice. There could be many reasons for why we want to post. It could be for an event that's coming up soon, or a statement on a recent political moment that happened in the world. So when you're making a post for your social media, it's important to have a clear goal of that post and making sure it's concise enough so people understand why you're posting it. That is not, sorry about that. Um, that was not supposed to, sorry about that. Um, all right. Um, Sorry about that. So here's an example of a good and a bad why do you say, or for an example, it could be a DSA page for Instagram. It's important that when you're developing your social media page, you're able to keep it dynamic. You don't just have a lot of posts that is just a lot of word banks. People should be able to see faces. People should be able to see the people that are organizing, so that they understand that, hey, this group made up of people, working class people every day like me, and that they're actually actively doing something. It's not just endless word text that is unengaging and they just click off. So with that, it's important to break up word bank heavy text posts with like pictures or videos, like recent events, recaps. So something like this would be like protest or a social that a chat has recently had. Just keeping the social page dynamic is really important. Uh, we'll go into a little bit briefly into like the design style, like DSA. Uh, DSA does have an official guide that covers best practices, color palettes, fonts, logos, examples of efficient designs, and they're all free and low cost resources for creating graphics, and they're easily accessible for DSA and YDSA chapters. Uh, Here in the bottom, we have an example of the DSA logo. It's an example of the importance of design guides. Whenever possible, the black and white DSA logo on DSA red should be used as it is a result of members of color pushing for logo change. However, sometimes a single color logo is necessary. And then we have a resource guide. The DSA design guide has a Google Drive folder full of designs, assets, inspiration relating to PNGs, the color palette, and backgrounds to use for your social media page. Your graphic design toolkit. Two great examples would be Canva. This slide's presentation was created using Canva. And Photopea can give you a Photoshop-esque experience without having to sign your soul away over to Adobe. Unfortunately, a lot of modern uh, graphic design toolkits are locking away a lot of their elements and tools to premium editions. But something like Canva, you're able to get away with not having to buy a premium monthly plan subscription. There's a lot of tutorials online to be able to like really get to know, and part of the journey, like getting better at like these kind of toolkits is just playing around with the toolkits that you're able to use and like seeing what works, what's able to work and what doesn't work. So the next question, we're going to talk about engagement with your social media page. This is going to go over like what an engaging social media page looks like and like how you can have making sure your social media page is engaging. Yeah, the philosophy of social media engagement. Social media is a mobilizing tool, and the more people that see and interact with your content consistently, the more likely you're able to get people into the door. It's important to post a variety of content in your feeds and to post consistently. One of the quickest ways that I like to like find out what a chapter is up to is checking their social media page. And if I see that they're active, they're posting regularly, they're posting dynamically, then it's like, okay, this is a chapter that's like on top of their stuff. You know, they are an active chapter, they are doing a lot of things, and this is gonna be the first thing a lot of people see when they're looking for a DSA chapter in the local area. So it's important that your social media page is remaining active so that they can engage people, so that they feel inspired to like reach out. Because if they see like an active YDSA chapter, if they see an active DSA chapter, they're gonna be like, wow, these people are really cool. They're doing a lot of stuff for my community or for a political moment. And that wants me to engage with them. So here we have a case study on like what a good post for the recent event will look like for a social media page. There's a couple of key elements to take point of, something like a punchy title slide. Uh, for example, at UFYDSA, $300,000 for a personal pool at their president's on campus mansion. wow, what? That is insane. That makes me angry, but I want to learn more. Relevant and funny comparisons. Uh, s- Making points like this could easily help creating your political argument. And a rationale, a call to action. At the end of the day, we as socialists want to organize the working class, and part of that is getting them involved. You know, people are going to see something, they're going to ask, "Wow, I don't like this is going on. How can I get involved?" So one of the most important things when developing a social media post is tying it all back to a call to action. What can you do? So for something like this, we had their UF post had a demonstration saying like, "Come out to this demonstration on Monday." They tell the time, the date. It's very clear and concise, and it gets people excited because they're like, okay, I can do that. I can go to that. So overall, this is a good example of like what a post and infographic looks like when it's done right. It's engaging, gets people excited, and it's relevant. And talking about relevancy, people want to engage with things that they care about. That should ideally be your campaign, but don't be afraid to play into campus trends or events. Obviously, something like this is more oriented to YDSA. But this can apply to the broader DSA as a whole. For something like in Miami, if a recent political moment happened, taking advantage of that by making a meme or a video about it is really gonna good. And it shows that you, as a YDSA or DSA chapter, is on top of things. So be relevant. And this last portion of the presentation will be going over the many duties of a social media page. Running a social media page is not easy. I've had to help run the Why They Say FAU page a couple of times, and it takes a lot. There's a lot to go into it, such as actually creating the graphic design, taking videos and photos of the event, um, creating the captions for it, making sure that you post at the correct time. It's a lot that I can't get into right now, but when we say that, don't do it alone, don't do it alone. It's a very easy thing to like make it a collaborative effort with other chapter members, and it can help ease the burden of what is a very, very heavy but important job in any YSA or DSA chapter. So some examples of what uh, a good social media team would be like would be someone designated to like be a photographer, videographer at an event, make sure someone's delegated to be able to record the actual event so that when we want to make a post for it, we have pictures. I will attest that at YDC FIU, I am very annoying about taking pictures and videos of events. And sometimes if I'm not there, there just isn't any photos or events, and then we don't have anything to post. So making sure that's delegated to someone beforehand, before an event happens, is really important. A copywriter writes text-based posts and captions, really important, especially for messaging. Optics are very important when it comes to DSA and YDSA chapters. So making sure someone is literate enough to be able to like write things that are relevant. It's really important. Graphic designers, a big, big point. This is very difficult. I can attest to, but it can be done. Making sure someone who has a good head on their shoulders when it comes to like making a snappy and good to look at graphic design for when you post on your social media. And then lastly, social media outreach interacts with other organizations and chapters on social media. Um, like I said before, one of the first things that people will see of a DSA or YSA chapter will most likely be their social media page. And that's how a lot of other organizations or other DSA chapter members, or even just someone who wants to get involved, will reach out to you. They'll send you a direct message, whether it be on Twitter or Instagram. So it's important that we have someone that's delegated to that role to be able to respond and see messages like that. So, like I was saying, delegate, delegate, delegate. Social media is a great way to get new members involved. No theory and little training required. Teach someone how to create graphics. This will create a bond with them and add another person to your social media team. Task a new member with being the photographer for an event. Great way to get someone involved if they're still nervous about engaging with people. Yeah, it's overall social media isn't the hardest thing in the world, but it does take a lot of time and effort. And if we're able to like delegate a lot of these important roles and duties to especially new members, it's an easy way for them to get engaged with a chapter. It's also, if someone's a little bit nervous about being like so front facing, this is also another way to like have them be able to do a little bit behind the scenes work and get involved. and making them feel important as well, because it's a very important skill, and no labor is unimportant, of course. So yeah, that was the first half of this presentation. Thank you for listening, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask.
I don't have a question. I was just gonna say that was really good and useful. I really liked it.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, so if there's no questions for anybody, we can go into the next portion of the presentation, and I'll hand it off over to Mel.
Yay, that's me. Thank you so much, Diego. That was super fabulous. I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. Let me really quickly oh, I'm not sure I still have okay, just kidding. I thought I lost my screen sharing thing for a moment. Um, Hang on, please forgive me. I'm very old and I don't understand technology. Okay. All right. I think I got it now. All right. Can everybody see my little screen? Okay, it looks like we can. Yay! Okay, cool. Oops, sorry. Following up with Diego's excellent presentation, I'm going to be talking about the basics of graphic design in the context of running a social media profile. So there's going to be, sorry, I haven't done this in a while. There's going to be a little bit of art history and a little bit of practical stuff in here. But the takeaway that I hope folks bring out of this is that graphic design is fun. It's a skill anybody can learn, and it's really useful and also, I think, very enjoyable. And it can serve the resolution. This propaganda is power plus performance. And the role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible. Um, so this is like a small part of what we do with social media, and it's just good to have this information as fundamentals. Um, First I'll go into the difference between fine art and graphic design, or design in general. Fine art is more subjective. It's meant to evoke emotions, thoughts, and challenge the viewer. Um, it can be a lot more loosey-goosey in what it is. And fine art has been used as propaganda for a really long time. Famously, Jackson Pollock was supported by the CIA. Apologies if you hear my cat yelling in the background. It's not fine art, but Marvel movies are also funded by the Pentagon, whereas design has a set of rules and solves problems. If you look around, a lot of what you see is the conscious choice of a designer. From industrial design, looking at like chairs and safety signs. Colors are all intentional choices, shapes are all intentional choices, and all of this stuff can be used as propaganda. And every political movement, every government uses propaganda in some form or another. And some ways that folks use propaganda are a little more surprising than others, like down to gardening and architecture and landscape design. Um, Folks can be doing propaganda. Another important part about graphic design and visual art and why these things matter are the halo effect or the halo error, which is a cognitive distortion by which, people usually think that hot people are generally smarter, more competent than those who are not conventionally attractive. And this is something that we can use to our advantage and something that most political movements do use to their advantage. Basically, if you're not making beautiful propaganda art, if you're not kind of selling a vision of a better future that's also very beautiful, people aren't really going to be paying any attention to what you do or what you say. And I think Diego demonstrated that really well when he was talking about the importance of having a beautiful social media feed. It makes you take DSA chapters more seriously and pay more attention to what they're doing. Unfortunately, image is a really important part of political power and building a political power and a base. So what are our goals? Diego outlined these earlier, but basically a lot of what we focus on in our chapters, social media is advertising events, sharing news, and kind of expanding on political moments going on, education, and overall increasing interest in membership. And over here on the left, I found a nifty little graphic of 12 of the basic graphic design principles. They're actually a lot more than this. Um, but that's like you know, that's a whole college course, so we can only talk about so much today. So we're going to be focusing a lot on color theory and contrast and hierarchy um, and alignment today. Um, just because those are kind of the most important things that we end up focusing on with our social media. And those are the things that make a small, little rectangle pop to be really interesting. So here is an example of a whole bunch of examples of propaganda from the Soviet Union, from China, from the US, from the UK over the years. Over on the left, we see central composition. And that kind of gives you this really like rooted, solid sense. Um, Keep calm and carry on is not just a Pinterest thing. It was, this poster that was pasted all over the place in the UK during World War II. Um, and there's that like rooted solid sense. On the right we have a bunch of offset composition posters, usually left or right, and offset composition will give you this really exciting sense of movement. um, and it was used a lot to give these connotations of moving forward into the future, which is the type of thing that's like, for this we need to study, and well, yes, we do. But these are the kinds of composition that we end up using most on our own social media, so it's good to know what they are and what they're best used for. Composition is a tool too. I'd also like to talk about the rule of thirds really quick. The rule of thirds is basically when you take two vertical lines and two horizontal lines and you divide your image up into 9 equal squares. Um, and I really like this graphic on the left because it shows, where someone's focus starts and ends in an image. And I think this is the case for, language that's read left to right. Some folks read right to left, and you kind of reverse that in that case. But over on the right, we have some photographs of an egg, with some composition way more exciting than others. And it's because they're paying attention to the rule of thirds. So over there on the right, there's that offset composition that gives you this really exciting sense of movement. And that's something we've used on a few of our posts as well. Another important tool to think about when doing graphic design is contrast. High contrast is way more legible and clear. It's easy to read. It's a little more exciting to look at. Low contrast isn't necessarily bad. It can be a really useful tool as well. I often like to put low contrast images like in the background of things, and then layer high contrast stuff on top. Um, both of these types of contrast are tools as well, and you just kind of want to be aware of the goals of the image that you're making when you use them. I also really want to talk about color theory. Um, we've got our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And we've also got our secondary colors, orange, green, purple. Um, and we've got complementary colors, which are best friends with each other. They live opposite from each other on the color wheel. So red and green, uh, yellow and pink or purple, blue and orange, or like light blue and orange. Um, everybody across from the cover wheel are best friends with each other, and they kind of help to create contrast too. They make things really interesting. Like if you find the combination of green and pink really pleasing, as I do, that's because they kind of work as complementary colors a lot of the time. Over on the right, I've got some examples of the posters of Saul Bass, which you might be familiar with if you've seen a lot of movies from the 60s. He was a really famous graphic designer, and you can see his use of color and high contrast, how it makes everything really beautiful and exciting. And I think that's something that we end up drawing from a lot on our social media. There's also, the color scheme that we tend to work with, red, white, and black. This is the work of, and I'll probably pronounce his name wrong, Hugo Gillert. Gillert, I'm not really sure, which is embarrassing. I didn't have time to look it up before this. But this is kind of the socialist communist tradition for propaganda art and for posters. And we stick with this sometimes. And that's, part of our design guidelines. But I think it can, and there's a reason we stick with this. It's really strong. It's really easy to read. Red is really energetic and exciting and beautiful, and of course, socialism. But it can also be really exciting to deviate from that. And of course, I wanted to talk about Zohran Mamdani's incredibly effective campaign to win the primary for mayor of New York recently. Part of why he was so successful is his team had an incredibly strong grasp of graphic design and color theory. So you can see he uses a lot of those complementary colors, and they're really fun. And they kind of work with this color palette that works in a lot of different combinations because they create a lot of high contrast. And, there's that central composition that's really rooted and really solid and stable, but there's still a fun little radial thing happening, where like his name is kind of connected between his head and the edges of the frame, with like a radial composition of that sort of indigo color, that ends up being really fun and enjoyable to look at. So I think there's a reason that we use a certain color palette, and it's also fun to deviate from and really effective to deviate from at the right time. It's also really important to talk about text hierarchy. This kind of draws the attention of the eye. Usually people read things in kind of like a triangle shape. The triangle is the strongest shape in nature. Like if you look at this poster for The Shining, the title is largest, and then as you go down in details, things get smaller and smaller. And we do the same thing to advertise events, that I'll kind of show you guys later on. But basically, text hierarchy, the more important something is, the bigger it is. You want it to be simple. And then as information gets more detailed, it gets smaller and smaller as you go down the page. Here's an example of how Zohran Mamdani's campaign used text hierarchy. So you can kind of see like that use of contrast again, the way the text kind of shrinks as we follow, his campaign promises and what he's interested in providing the citizens of New York. And also, just basic stuff. Zohran is bigger than for New York City. That's what draws the eye. And then it shows his name and then shows you his goals. Also important to think about kerning, the space between letters and sometimes lines. Over on the left, it's good to avoid really squished together kerning. It can make things really illegible and hard to read. In the middle, sometimes you do want to use kerning that's very far apart. Often this can work as like a subheading if you don't have, much to say, but generally you want to stick with a level of kerning that is easy to read, and understand, like on the right. So these aren't always hard and fast rules, but these are rules. And, we often follow them for a reason. Sometimes you can deviate from them. Sometimes you want to stick with them if you want to share a lot of information. So I wanted to do a lightning round of, what kind of posts we have on our Instagram. And these are the posts that may maybe like, oh, okay, we're taking this seriously now. We're cooking with gas. They started to be very beautiful and very exciting. So over here we have that offset composition, and we've got our use of complementary colors. I thought the use of purple as the shadow of, red images was really clever because it makes the yellow really pop. So there's a lot of movement in this image, and it's really beautiful and really eye-catching. Same with this one. I really love this one. I thought the use of knockout text over on the left, which is just where you use transparent text, over like a solid field that kind of looks into an image underneath it. I thought that was really clever. And there's that same use of offset composition, complementary colors, that makes everything really clear and easy to read and really beautiful. And here's an ad for the Proletariat Basketball Society. Um, and this just has, again, that offset composition, lots of contrast. It's really easy to read. It's really fun. It's exciting to look at. And there's a lot of movement. Um, this is one that I made where I stole the um, color design that we'd used previously. This was really wordy, so it's not quite as exciting as other ones. But this happened right after No Other Land won an Oscar, and Miami DSA had helped with some screenings. And, you know, the media had been not really reflecting the words of Handan Bilal's co-director, who said he was lynched and abducted, which is a very purposeful word choice. So I thought it was worth, you know, reflecting that. And this is a piece of like very clear propaganda. Here we've also got No Ice in the Everglades. And this was a recap post of all of us showing up to one of the first days of protesting against the concentration camp in the Everglades. So again, there are these, contrasting colors, that solid central composition, um, that makes everything uh, very clear to read. And also, all the different colors are very fun, but there's still an element of red. And this is our most popular post ever at this point, a call for a boycott of all of the food trucks serving the workers at the concentration camp. Um, so again, there's that use of red, but there's also the use of complementary colors, blue, green, and orange. Um, and like a really, solid, clear central composition. It's really eye-catching. It's really bright. It's simple and easy to understand. Um, and this was a really successful post, um, that helped, raise awareness of what's happening in the Everglades currently and gave people an idea of what to do in as little as, I haven't even counted it, like 7 words. Super effective propaganda, super effective graphic design, really great social media management. And like Diego said, the science of what goes viral and what doesn't is a lot more than just what's good looking. It's timing, it's word choice, it's a lot of different things, but that all kind of came together for this to be a really successful post. I think it's crossed like 15,000 likes at this point. Um, sorry, skip one. So that's pretty much it. Those are the basics. There's a lot more to say about graphic design and visual art and propaganda. Here are some sources that I drew from while I was making this presentation. A lot of these I have in hard copies or paperbacks. So anyone wants to borrow them, just let me know. You can also read up to 100 articles for free on JSTOR if you make a account, but I can download stuff from there as well. And congratulations, you now have mild mind control powers, because that's kind of what graphic design is in this context and in a lot of other contexts. Uh, so happy to take any questions
Yeah, I
that we
think
all have.
I'll go ahead and stop the recording now. Just so that if folks do want to ask questions, there isn't any,